Tell me about Grace. By all accounts, she was such a special person.
She was a wonderful girl. She was everything that I think a father would want from a daughter. She was sporty, she was friendly, she was academic. She ticked every box.
And what do you remember most about her, James?
Grace was so special to me. She mastered everything that I'm in the midst of trying to master in terms of how inspirational she was. She was the pinnacle of inspiration to me, to so many people she wouldn't even know herself, but I think it's very evident from the widespread outpouring of love that we've had from this whole event, and it's been very, very heartwarming for me. Yeah, she was just the best sister I could have asked for. She'd always be there for me as a shoulder for me to cry on, an ear to quietly listen, and she'd always had my back. She had my best interests at heart all the time. I couldn't have asked for anything more from an older sister.
What do you miss most about her?
Her smile. It was so contagious, and I really miss it, and knowing that I'll never see that again is something that really hurts me. She was such a joyous person to be around. Her laughter, her excitement, she had such an unmatched just zest for life. You know, she was honestly so perfect. I miss everything, and that sounds so cliche, but I truly miss everything about her.
How about you, Dr. Kumar?
Well, she filled the house with sound and music, and the house was very quiet.
Can you tell me where you were when you found out about what had happened?
It was the morning of my second chemistry exam. I remember that morning looking at the headlines and seeing 2 students had been killed in an attack in Nottingham. And initially, as anyone does, I just kind of saw it and I didn't dwell on it at all. And then I was on the way home from my exam and Mum put a message on the WhatsApp chat saying, "Grace, get in touch as soon as you can." We were all calling her. I remember Mum calling her, and then Dad, you kind of rushed home, right?
I did. I was at work and called her phone at least 5 times. Got no reply. We rushed home, and my wife was frantically making calls to find out where she was.
And even then I said to Mum, like, this can't be a possibility, you know, her phone could be dead from a night out. She could just have slept in, as like all students do during university, as they all should do. She could just not have access to her phone, she could have lost it. I was thinking everything but the worst. And I was trying to reach out to her friends, and they hadn't seen her. They were panicking, calling me, calling my mum, calling Dad, asking where she'd been, if we'd had any contact with her.
And I think, call it a mother's intuition. We didn't really wait, we just jumped in the car and just started driving towards Nottingham.
How was the news broken to you?
So I think the Nottingham Constabulary said that we are going to be sending 2 officers down to come and see you. And the minute I heard that, having had worked previously with the police, I kind of knew that that's what that was for. So we refused the offer because we wanted to drive up to Nottingham and not stay in London. And obviously all of the many miles up, we were hoping and wishing that somehow she would have survived her injuries, and we were hoping that it wasn't her. But we just made our way up. We just drove up to Nottingham.
I remember quite vividly, good friends of Grace's, when Barney was pronounced dead, they told my parents, they told my mum that Grace was last seen with Barney walking home. And initially when I saw a man and a woman had been killed, I thought to myself, like, Grace is only 3 years above me and I'm still a baby practically. I was only 16 at the time. To me, Grace it just didn't click with me that she would be labelled as a woman in the news, nor Barney a man. And it didn't cross my mind at all that it could have been her. So when we saw that, well, when I saw that, I had hope, and then we heard about Barney, and we kind of connected the dots from there. And as Dad said, we got in the car and made our way up.
And there was such a reaction, wasn't there, from family, from her vast group of friends, from sporting clubs, from the whole city to what had happened. You were received very well, weren't you? And you stood in front of the city, really, didn't you? And told them from your heart how you were feeling. How did you find the strength for that?
It was an event that was just so overwhelming because firstly, it's the first time we'd ever met Barney's parents, and I remember looking up and seeing all of her team, her hockey team, in their uniform, and the hillside across the university and the campus was absolutely full of students holding flowers and tributes. I was totally overcome. We had no plans. I certainly had no plans of saying anything. But I remember speaking to Barney's father at that time and just saying I had this overwhelming sense of thanking people for giving up their time and remembering Grace. And it was also a tribute to how popular Grace was. So it was overwhelming to see the thousands of students. The hillside was practically full of students. I've seen nothing like it, and I just had this, again, overwhelming sense to say thank you.
Then somehow you found the strength to stand in front of thousands of people in the city centre and tell them about Grace. How did you manage that?
Well, we didn't plan on saying anything, right?
We had nothing prepared.
And then I thought to myself, like, at maximum there'll be a few hundred people here. And I remember walking around the back and looking out and seeing thousands of people. And as Dad said, it was completely overwhelming. But I think the moral is that Grace was that type of person. She had such an effect on people she met, even for 30 seconds. She had such a big impact. And I think that's just a testimony to it all. When people heard the type of person she was, the things she'd achieved, it kind of struck a chord, especially as a student in a university town. I don't, personally looking back, I don't know how I had the strength through it, but I remember at the time I was telling myself, I have to do justice for my sister, and this is the way I can make her proud, because wherever she is, I know that she'll be watching me.
Did you take some comfort from the reaction you got from people?
Definitely.
Absolutely. Nottingham is a great city, and it is a fantastic university town. It is a superb university. It's one of the best medical schools in the country, and that's why Grace wanted to come here. I've always said it is the people, or in this case, a person, and certainly not a city that's to blame. So, you know, the fact that Grace had one of the best years of her life here means a lot to us. She used to tell us about how happy she was and what a great time she was having. It's everything that I think a father wants to hear, and she had that at Nottingham.
I remember after my GCSEs had just finished, me, Grace, and my two cousins, William and Max, we had a plan to come up literally 10 days later on the 23rd, roughly, and we were going to come up here and stay with Grace and go for a night out or whatever, just spend time with her. And that was just one of the many, many plans cancelled in her absence, which is a shame, a real shame.
The person responsible had a long history of mental health problems. Could anything have been done to stop what happened, do you think?
I think the courts will actually come up and I think speak about some of the evidence regarding the mental health history, and what should have been done and what didn't get done. I think it's, you know, a trifle premature at the moment to start looking into the gaps, and there were gaps, but I think this is something that will definitely be out in the open the next few days, I think, as it is discussed in court initially.
And the man who did this has admitted killing Grace, but not murdering her and killing her by diminished responsibility. Do you accept that as a family?
It's very hard to accept. It's very hard to accept for a father, and I'm sure for a brother. But you know, we have faith in the legal system. We have faith in the judiciary. We have faith in the court, and we hope that they do Grace justice.
And from everything you've learnt about Grace's case, how angry are you?
Well, it's not a question of how angry we are, because our losses, it's more sad. We're sad at the state of the country in terms of knife crime. It's at epidemic proportions, and yet lawmakers seem to be doing nothing about it. I think we really need to start looking at knife crime. Knives are not an offensive weapon, they are a lethal weapon, and as such, I think laws need to be changed in view of this epidemic of knife crime that is going across the country. If we don't do something about it, I think it'll be horrendous and it'll continue. So we must look at the laws again, and we must trust our lawmakers to change the legal system that looks at knife crime.
I think, from my point of view, it's shocking how it's harder to get access to alcohol. Sorry, it's easier to get access to alcohol than it is to get a knife. You know, anyone can go into a kitchen and get a knife and leave the house, and it's as simple as that. I think there's drink driving campaigns at Christmas time, which go widespread in the media. You always hear about them, but it's just not the same with knife crime. And every day, on the way to work, on the way to school, in the radio, you hear about a stabbing. You hear about stabbing somewhere in the country, and you kind of think about it for initially 30 seconds at maximum, and then you're on to your next part of your day. And I think until it hits you and until it comes close to home, that's what it takes you to realise that this is a serious problem, and it is something that needs sorting very, very soon before this gets any worse.
How do you feel towards the person who did this?
Well, they're certainly not kind thoughts. The love of our life has been taken away from us. You know, music from my ears has been taken away. Our landscape has turned from vivid colour to black and white.
I personally, I don't quite know what to say about how I feel, because for obvious reasons, there's not enough words I can use to describe how I feel. But I think the loss that we've suffered of losing Grace has been a loss to the country. She was someone who'd served the country in her life playing for England, played for England under 16, under 18 for 2 years. She had ambitions of serving as a medic in the armed forces and again serving the country, and she was a person who had a priority of contributing to the community. And during COVID, she was trained as a vaccinator, and she rode on her Vespa to the vaccination clinic and would vaccinate hundreds of people against COVID. And she'd put herself out there, she'd put herself at risk to benefit others and help the community get in a better position. To take that away from us is completely unfathomable, and he has no right to do that.
Can you ever forgive him?
No, I'll never forgive him. He's taken away my older sister. One day when my parents are gone, I'm now going to be left on my own. I won't have my sister, my future children won't have an aunt, they won't have cousins. He's taken a part away from me as well.
Can any punishment bring you some comfort?
I think there has to be an element of punishment in a case so horrible and hostile. And I think, again, as we've said, you know, we have faith in the judiciary and the courts, and we really hope that they do Grace and all the other victims justice.
You've spoken about how vibrant and talented Grace was. How do you want to honour her memory?
Well, since the few days after the 13th, I think on the 16th, I set up a page receiving donations for the Grace O'Malley Kumar Foundation. That's when it was formally started and found. Recently, we've built a website, we've started social media for the foundation, and it's now become a registered charity. I've done that alongside a great friend of Grace's, Alex, and we hope to continue using that as a platform to, promote fundraisers that we're doing, update people about recent events, let people know the type of person Grace was, and it's a platform that people can use to find out exactly who Grace was without having to know her. And ultimately, that's what I think is important, that even people who don't know her can see what we've lost and what an amazing person she was. I think that's the only way we can keep her legacy going, and it's something that I, as her younger brother, must do, and it's something that I must continue doing, and it's been a pleasure to do, because I know that she would do the same for me. She would always be there for me, and now even when she's not here, I'll make sure that I'm here for her, and I'll do the best I can for her legacy and to make sure she is remembered.
It's been a brutal journey since June. I don't think my poor wife has slept a night. Many tears, and it's been a very sad time.
I found myself completely lost since the 13th. I haven't had my best friend to go to. I haven't had an older sister to call. She hasn't been there to pick up the phone to me. And all I can do now to take any comfort in the slightest is I sleep with her university hockey top on my pillow. And I wear her clothes. That's how I try and connect with Grace. I have her earring in now, which I always keep in, because again, it's a part of her. And that's how I try and get as close as I can to her.
It's only really been just over 6 months, hasn't it? Does it get any easier?
Not at the moment. It's still very hard. It's still very recent. No, it's not easy.
Is there anything either of you'd like to add at all?
I just think more needs to be done to stop knife crime. It's simply not good enough. It shouldn't take people having to lose close ones and close people to them for the country to realise that this isn't acceptable. And me, myself, I'm going to try and campaign for knife crime, do presentations to schools locally about the dangers of carrying a knife and the effects that stabbing someone and losing someone can have on people, because you never understand until it comes close to home like we have. And I think that is a must.
And ultimately there must be a deterrent. Our government believes in deterrence. Our Prime Minister believes in deterrence. And if there isn't an appropriate deterrent for carrying knives, then it's just going to carry on. Our lawmakers need to look at knife legislation as soon as possible. We need to have appropriate deterrence. We cannot just have a slap on the wrist for the first time that you carry a knife and get caught with it. You should have a deterrence that will stop, and it can be done very easily. It is something that needs to be done immediately.